Praise the Lord, praise the Lord. Let the faith hear his voice. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord. Let the people rejoice. Oh, come to the Father through Jesus his Son, and give him the glory that great thing he's done. Great things he has taught us, great things he has done, and great are rejoicing through Jesus the Son. But purer and higher and grateful because our wonder, our transport when Jesus we see. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord. Let the faith hear his voice. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord. Let the people rejoice. Oh, come to the Father with Jesus the Son, and give him the glory and great thing he's done. And to the glory to our Heavenly Father.
Amen, amen. Praise God, to be the glory. Today's message is the beauty of holiness. All who have been coming on the Wednesday night services, we've been doing a lot of worship, how to pray, teach us how to pray, the importance how to pray. So that's what inspired me to write this message. Do you try to fit Jesus in your schedule? Or do you work your schedule around Jesus? I know I'm guilty of it. I know I'm supposed to put Jesus first. And some who doesn't know me, I'm an AC tech in the summer. We get our work. We're always busy. I don't even have time for my wife, my kids. So I know I'm guilty of it. But I think we all are guilty, whether we're willing to admit it or not. We cannot fit Jesus into our plans, but we must fit him into his. We cannot fit it into our plans. We must first into his. Writes Eugene Patterson. We cannot use God as a tool or appliance or credit card. Holy is the word that God set apart above to attempt to enlist him with the wishful fantasies or man's schemes for making a mark on this world. Holy mean is a life on God's terms, a life in a way that exceeds our experiences. Holy referred to life burning with an intense purifier that transforms everything it touches itself. Hebrew word for holy is kadosh. Probably originally meant separate or mean separate apart, set apart. It came to use to describe the outerness of God and how the character and nature so much greater than more wonderful than any other person or thing. For something else to be holy simply means for it to be dedicated to God. You are holy in the extent that the life is devoted to him and your action reflects his character. Today's passage will help us understand the holiness and what it looks like. If you read Psalms 27 verses 1 to 6, I'm going to summarize it, what it means. How do we live a life without fear? David had plenty of reason to be afraid. He was surrounded by vandals, bullies, even people who wanted to kill David because of Saul, because he was the king to be. Yet, he was not afraid. He was calm. How can we be confident in the face of an opposition, of attack? The focus of his life was worship. He focused one thing. The number one priority. He was not trying to fit God into his plan. He made his plans around his first priority, which was worship. If you were here Wednesday, remember the story about King Jehoshaphat? Where God gave them the land, God fight their battles, and also rewards them for worship. If you were there Wednesday. He gave a wonderful description of worship. What he wants to do more than anything to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord is to seek him in his temple. Then he will sacrifice and shout for joy and sing for the Lord. I love the expression of beauty of the Lord. The Greek word beauty means kalos. It is the word used to describe everything that Jesus did. If you'll find that in Mark 7:37. Dvorsky described Jesus as infinite beauty. Jesus had no outward beauty. You'll find that in Isaiah 53, verse 2 and 3. He had a different kind of beauty, the beauty of holiness. As we seek the Lord and gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and worship, he lifts us up above all distraction, fears, and temptation. As David puts it, it's only quiet, secure place in a noisy world. God holds me head and shoulder above those who tries to pull me down. Psalm 27, verse 5 and 6. David said, I love you, Lord. Lord, you are my light and my salvation. You are my stronghold of my life. One thing I ask, that I may dwell in your house all the days of my life and gaze on your beauty. In Mark 9:33, 10 and 12, it said, serve the Lord in the life of holiness. What would be your attitude to be other Christians, ministries, and other churches? The division among fellowship of Jesus started very early on. The disciples started arguing, who is the greatest? And Jesus told them the characteristics, the life of holiness. Point number one, is humility. Jesus tells that you cannot compete to be a number. It's always a temptation to compete. Envy and rival are great dangers. Jesus said, if you're going to compete, it should be to get the last place. If anyone wants to be first, they must be very last. And the servant of all, leaders, are called to be humble servants. Point number two is love. He took a little child whom he placed among them, taking his child on his arm, and he said to them, whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. Jesus demonstrated that we are to love and welcome everyone, even those who are unable to do anything for us. The young, the weak, the poor. In doing so, we are loving and welcoming Jesus. The third point that I would like to get to you is tolerance. Jesus tells the disciple not to dismiss or judge others who do these things in Jesus' name, just because they're not a part of their group, or they were doing things in a different manner and how the disciples were doing them. It's a mistake to dismiss other Christians or denomination or other organization because they're not one of us. The fourth reason is discipline. Sometimes we tolerate sins in our own lives, but are tolerated towards other sin in people. My mistake. Let me reread it. We sometimes tolerate sins in our own lives, but are tolerated towards other people's sin. Jesus teaches us to be tolerant towards others, but tolerant about sin in our own lives. Of course, Jesus does not speak in our literally mimicking, but to take course, he's talking about the figure language, doing what we do with our hands, where we go with our feet, what we look with our eyes. We are to discipline on comparison the sin in our lives. It's often sin that leads to division. Jesus called to be ruthless in living a life of holiness. Next reason, number 5.5, is peace. Jesus tells us not to argue, but to be at peace. Jesus longed to have disciples to get along with one another. Stop arguing and be at peace with each other. Later he prayed that we may be one in order to the world would believe. And you'll find that in John 17:21. The last point is faithfulness. Jesus called his disciples to be faithful in marriage. He points out to Moses, permission of divorce was a concession and not a command. God's intention for marriage is life and long and faithful. Husbands and wife are closely united that they became one flesh.
Amen.
So they're no longer two, but one flesh. You'll find that in Mark 10:8. This is the origin of the wonderful word in the marriage services, which follows the joining of hands and exchanging of vows. Therefore, what God had joined together, let us no one separate. This is the prayer for the church, and even me. I pray, Lord, help us through the power of the Holy Spirit to live an holy life and to develop the characteristics of the humility, love, tolerance, discipline, peace, and faithfulness. Help me to serve you in a life of holiness. If we read Leviticus verse 1, between 3 and 17, to be holy as the Lord is holy. How can we live a holy life when the world around us is so unholy? As the people of God who are entering the promised land, this is what Eugene Patterson described the narrative pause: an extended time of instruction, a detail of meticulous preparation of living holy in a culture that doesn't have the finest idea what holy is. That was Eugene Patterson's famous words. First, he writes, every detail in our lives is affected by the presence of his holy God. We are called for holiness in every aspect in our day-to-day lives. Holiness and wholeness are closely related. God wants to be whole in our lives. Second, Eugene Patterson continued, closely provide the sacrifices and the feast and the Sabbath to bring everything in and about us in a holy present that transform the blaze of that holiness. The language of the Leviticus sounds very strange in modern ears. The law requires the sacrifice to be perfect, without defect. Throughout the sacrifice, atonement was made. Symbolically, through the laying of hands of the head of the bulls and the goats and the lamb, the sin was passed to the attribute who was sacrificed on behalf of human beings. The blood of the sacrifice was very important. All this can be understood fully in the light of the New Testament. The writer Hebrew tells us without shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sin. You'll find that in Hebrew 9:22. He tells us the laying of the law and a shadow. In other words, it's just as foreshadowing a picture for something far greater and wonderful. He writes, the law is only a shadow of a good thing that is coming, not a reality themselves. It is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away the sins. You'll find that in Hebrew 10, verse 1 to 4. All this was leading up for the sacrifice of the body of Jesus Christ, once and for all. You'll find that in Hebrew 10:10. By one sacrifice, he was made perfect for even those who have been made holy. We receive the total forgiveness, and where things have been forgiven, sacrifice for sin is no longer necessary. So the New Testament tells us of these sacrifices are needed anymore. However, they are a form of background to the sacrifice of Jesus that help us to understand just how amazing it is holiness starts by putting our faith in what Jesus has done and ask us by his Holy Spirit to come into our lives and help us live an holy life. In gratitude for all that God has done for us by sacrificing of the Jesus on behalf of, we offer our bodies as living sacrifice, holy, pleasing to God. This is our true and prosper worship. You'll find that in Romans 12, verses 1 and 2. Lord, full of thankfulness and praise, I offer my body as a living sacrifice. Help us, through your Holy Spirit, to live in me and to be holy as you are. Jesus said, be peace with each other. You'll find that in Mark 9.